Want to learn how to cook better? Yeah, you could spend more on expensive ingredients. You could try tricky techniques that trained chefs use. Or you can learn how to squeeze the specialness out of the ingredients you likely have in your fridge already. Pair this kind of food with good wine and what you have is a family meal. Welcome to Family Meal, experimental home cooking for the 21st century. Each week I show you how to prepare a delectable feast with wine pairings. Then you get to watch while my friends tell me what they think about it.
Oh, it was so good.
Family Meal is about exploring food from different places and different times to understand how people make awesome food with what they have. In this episode, we're riffing on recipes from the Mother Waddles Cookbook, written in 1970 in Detroit. We can't go back to that time, but we can understand it better through the food in this book. Charlesetta Waddles, or Mother Waddles, could squeeze the greatness out of anyone, out of anything, even her food. She was best known as the CEO of Mother Waddles Perpetual Mission, a nonprofit that still provides comprehensive social services in Detroit. But she also wrote 2 cookbooks filled with food that pushes the boundaries with common ingredients. Can you believe this? She ran a 35-cent restaurant where you could get a meal with white tablecloths and uniform servers and everything for just a quarter and a dime. Of course, those who could afford it paid more as a donation to the mission, but the food she made was accessible to the needy, but also special enough to be enjoyed by foodies in the 70s. People were paying up to $3 for just a cup of coffee in her food palace. That's why we have to try out her recipes. Anybody who can do that with food is someone worth learning about. But don't take my word for it. Make these dishes yourself and tell me what you think. Comment, like, and subscribe so I can see if these dishes resonate with you too. And in a few minutes, we'll see if they resonate with my friends. But first, I have to cook them. So first, I'm doing potato croquettes in a paprika sauce. Think of this dish as seriously upgraded mashed potatoes. Inside-out mashed potatoes even. They're way better than tater tots. Next is okra, roasted corn, and tomato salad. Most people love roasted corn, but okra is a different story. You'll see how in this preparation, though, the okra helps bind the salad together in a pleasing way. Next is ham hocks and butter beans. This dish is saucy. It's got loads of tender meat and creamy beans that are covered in pork stock. And for dessert, I'm serving a prune roll. If you love cinnamon rolls, you'll love this dessert. Plus, there are a few other yummy surprises to come too, so keep watching. By the way, I'm making enough for 8 today, so that there's enough for seconds for the 5 eaters. So keep that in mind if you make these dishes at home. A list of the ingredients with the amounts is below, but you'll need to multiply or divide depending on the size of your gathering. Also, I'm cooking dishes that are inspired by Mother Waddles. They aren't the exact same dishes. I've updated them to fit what I have available in my garden, my friends' tastes, and my goal of presenting a feast. Just like Mother Waddles did in the 1970s, my goal is to push the boundaries of my ingredients, not just recreate a recipe. But I think the spirit of the mission is still there. And these dishes still need to be doable for me, a home cook with a camera, and for you too, right? Let's get started on the croquettes. This is about 5 pounds of boiled and mashed russet potatoes. I like russet because they're the classic potato for mashing in my opinion, and we're going classic today. These were peeled and boiled whole so that they didn't take too much water on. I've got all my ingredients here that get mixed into the potatoes. Into them, I'm going to mix about 1.25 cups of breadcrumbs. These are panko breadcrumbs. 8 tablespoons of butter, 8 tablespoons of salt and some pepper, 1/2 cup of chopped fennel fronds, 1/2 cup of diced prosciutto, 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, and a tablespoon of creme fraiche, just for fun. Once mixed, I form the potatoes into about 41-ounce balls. You can go completely spherical or you can make logs, whatever you think will look best and work for you. Dip each ball into egg, then panko, and then it's ready to go. Fry each croquette until golden. Don't these look good? But that's not all. They need a sauce. The sauce for this is a simple paprika scented dip that has smoked paprika powder, fresh garlic, and mayonnaise. If you don't have smoked paprika powder, just use any other powdered chili you like. Just don't use a heavily smoked chili powder like chipotle. Grind some red chili flakes even in a mortar and pestle or underneath your rolling pin in a zip-top bag. Now all there is to do is plate. we're just gonna put a small bowl for the sauce, put some sauce in there, and stack the croquettes so they look nice. So easy and so good. You'll never forget these mashed potatoes. Everyone loves a good mozzarella stick, but I think I prefer these. Crispy outside and creamy inside. They're the perfect start to any meal, and that's how I'm gonna use them today. Next, we're gonna make the okra, corn, and tomato salad. This is a salad of the kernels of 3 oven-roasted corn cobs, 3 large diced tomatoes, 2 onions, 1 pound of okra cut into rounds, some cheese, oregano, lemon juice, and olive oil. I'm not gonna show you how to roast the corn in this video, but check out the full recipe at winosity.com where I give complete instructions. If you have fresh okra, go ahead and use that, but this is frozen that I just got from the grocery store. Don't panic, yes, I'm using frozen, it will be fine, you'll see. Next, cook the okra and onions in butter until very hot and tender. The okra is gonna make a sticky juice that'll help combine all the ingredients together. Remove the okra from the heat and mix in the corn, the tomatoes, the celery leaves, and the oregano. Meanwhile, in a separate bowl, mix the fresh oregano leaves, olive oil, lemon juice, and salt and pepper to taste. Then mix all this together until it becomes a dressing. Pour the dressing around the side of the bowl, and then push the veggies up into the dressing until well mixed. If you turn and push down, you crush the vegetables more, so I think this way keeps everything fresher and lighter. Now all there is to do is plate. For this one, we're just gonna put it in a nice bowl and add a few garnishes like sour cream, some cheese, and some herbs. Nothing complicated, but very appetizing. The primary fruit flavors in Gruner Veltliner are lime, lemon, and grapefruit. It's very citrusy and acidic. There's also a green and herbaceous or grassy flavor in this wine. Some say that it has a flavor that's close to white pepper, but that's exactly why I chose this wine for these 2 dishes. I thought the herbaceous flavors would complement the fresh herbs and the grassy taste of the okra. It will taste like a tight but pleasant chord, a chord without much space between the notes, a chord with focused power. With the potato croquettes, which has ham and milk, we have a big broad chord, one where the notes have more space between them. There is a broader, bigger power in this pairing.
Oh, yeah.
This one's not bad. It's
almost like
a continuation of the salad.
It is kind of.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I tasted it. No, yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
All right, it's time for some ham hocks. This dish is so easy, but so flavorful. It's just a few ingredients, meat, beans, and garnish. That's it. The only thing I would suggest is be sure you select the meatier hocks when you're at the grocery store. Some hocks are more bone and gristle than meat. In a pressure cooker, layer the onions, then the beans, then the hocks. Add about 3 cups of water and cook for 40 minutes at high pressure in your pressure cooker. That's it. When done cooking, remove the skin from the hocks, which you can crisp up into pork cracklings if you have a fryer, or you can discard. Next, pull the meat off the hocks. It should be pretty tender and will come off in chunks. See how easy that was? Now all we have to do is plate. Pour off just a bit of the juice. You can use this later to braise some vegetables in. Sauerkraut will be great in this. Sometimes I make sauerkraut with caraway seeds, fresh apple, this sauce, and some white wine. It's amazing. Now pour the remaining beans and liquid onto the platter. Top them with the chunks of meat. Then just sprinkle the garnish over the top. In this case, we have diced tomato, diced onion, and fresh parsley. See how pretty that looks? I've paired this dish with 2 wines. Pork is a milder meat, so I wanted to give my friends options. I wanted to get their opinion on whether they thought it was better paired with a big oaky Chardonnay or a light red. So for the Chardonnay, I chose a buttery, oaky Chardonnay that should pair well with smoked meat and creamy beans. On the other hand, I paired it with a Valpolicella, a light red. Pork is meat, and so there is some fattiness to this dish, so it can stand up to a heavier wine than a Chardonnay. Now, this is a lighter red as red wines go, but it still has the tannins that dry the mouth and more body than a Chardonnay. So we'll see what my friends think.
I do think I prefer the red with this.
Okay.
I'm not a big Chardonnay fan overall.
Okay.
I prefer a Sauvignon Blanc in terms of the whites. But a nice light red.
We purposely got a really oaky, buttery Chardonnay to go with this, just thinking with the fat and might go better, but I agree with you, red. I like the fruity red with it better.
I don't know, I think I agree with John on this one. I think I like the Chardonnay. And I do prefer reds usually, but now that we're comparing them side by side.
I like the vodka. This is going with everything with us.
So here we are. The prune roll.
Okay, time for something sweet. We're gonna make a prune roll. First, we make the dough. I sift all the dry ingredients together and add just enough water to make a dough, about 2 cups in this case. But I live in the desert, so you may not have to use as much water as I did. This will vary depending on how dry your flour is. Once you have a dough, roll it into a rectangle about 1/4 inch thick. Then pour your prune mixture over it. By the way, this is if you want to make a pie dough from scratch. You can certainly buy a store-bought dough. You'll need about 2 or 3 9-inch rounds to complete this recipe. Next, I take the prune mixture and spread it out over this pie dough. This is about 4 cups of mashed prunes that were soaked in hot water to get them soft. Soaking might take about 45 to 90 minutes depending on how dry the prunes are. Mash in the butter, the spices, and pecans until well mixed. By the way, I soaked my pecans in bourbon for an hour, but this is optional though. Okay, all this goes into the oven for about an hour at 275. And this is what it looks like when it's done. I'll admit that this is a sticky recipe. I got prune in places that I didn't mean to, but even though it doesn't look the greatest, it still tastes great. And I'll plate it in a way so that people won't even notice the mess. I'm showing it to you this way here for now, but I'll also show you the way I plated it so that it looked a little bit better. I added a bit of citrus whipped cream to the top, I sliced it up, and everything was good. I paired this with a slightly sparkling sweet red wine. It's very light, only 7% alcohol, and the bubbles help this sweet wine from feeling too cloying, too overly sweet. At the same time, you do want a wine with some sweetness because you are pairing it with a sweet dish, with a dessert. And you want the sweetness of the wine to match the sweetness of the dish. And I think that is true in this case, in this pairing.
Goes well with this.
You think?
It's wonderful. I didn't think I would like it. Okay, we'll try it. I don't really like prune.
I think it goes smoothly from this to that.
Yes.
Because this is kind of sweet.
So there you have it. I made 4 dishes inspired by Mother Waddles Cookbook from 1970. I made fried potato croquettes with a paprika sauce, glorified okra, roasted corn, and tomato salad, smoked ham hocks with butter beans, and for dessert, a prune roll. It was so fun sharing these dishes with my friends. Full disclosure, I'm from Detroit, so this food reminds me so much of the special occasion food I ate growing up. In fact, I still make okra, corn, and tomato salad for myself to this day. But many of the other ingredients are ones that I don't use often, so it was fun to get my hands dirty. It was also fun to think about and add my spin to these dishes. For example, putting a Mexican cheese into a very, very African-American dish. But I say, hey, if it tastes good. And I really enjoyed pairing these dishes with wine. There really is a wine for every occasion and every dish, even ones that were served at a 35-cent per plate restaurant. Now for my friends. I think they had fun too. Overall, they enjoyed the pairings. But between the red and the white pairing with the pork, the table was split. 2 liked the white, while 3 liked the red. but I think that means that they both went well and it's just a matter of taste. I also think they were surprised by the sparkling red, how light and refreshing the bubbles made a sweet wine feel, and how well it went with the dessert. In short, a good time was had by all. So that was episode 1 of Family Meal and our wine pairings. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, and share the work. If you want these recipes, you can find them at winosity.com, where you'll find other food and wine pairings, and the Winosity app, where you can keep track of the good wines you discover out in the world. I hope you'll join us next month for our next episode. I'll be cooking recipes by Rufus Estes. He was the first African-American chef to have a published cookbook in 1857. Whereas Mother Waddles was cooking for every person, Rufus Estes was cooking for presidents and diplomats. They are also cooking about 100 years apart, so we'll not only get into his tasty dishes, but also how time and audience affected their cooking. I hope you'll join us. Until then, bye.